Breaking grounds with pioneering minds, PCCI is a dynamic force that offers its members fresh new ideas, new choices, and creative new approaches. From only a handful before the turn of the century, the PCCI family has grown to more than 1,600 direct members, more than 100 industry associations, pioneering minds, more than 100 local chambers, and around 35,000 SMEs nationwide. To ensure alignment of its advocacies and activities, the PCCI works closely with government, other business groups, donor organizations, and international agencies, as well as the academe. The PCCI also provides a platform that links local firms with the global business community. PCCI also engages foreign chambers, diplomatic corps, international agencies in search of broader trade and economic cooperation. The Philippine Business Conference and Expo is the most important annual activity of the PCCI and one of the most prestigious events in the country. Local and foreign companies wanting to establish new ventures or seeking new markets find it highly attractive to attend due to the many benefits it offers. Every year, more than 800 stakeholders attend the conference, composed of key government officials, business leaders, diplomatic corps, foreign chambers, multilateral donor agencies, PCCI corporate members, bilateral business councils, local chamber and industry association leaders. With resourcefulness, ingenuity, collective ideas, and strength, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry remains steadfast in its principles of business growth and development. Pioneering, innovating, and trailblazing. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry will remain as that. One voice of business in the country. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the voice of Philippine business. Established by a dynamic group of individuals with strong leadership presence and passion for business and economic development. An influential alliance of business leaders providing policy directions to government and ensuring sustained economic development. This is the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. On April 19, 1886, three of the largest Spanish companies in Manila formed the Cámara de Comercio de Filipinas. Following the downfall of the colonial Spanish government, the popularity of Filipino and Chinese century Industrialists founded the Chamber of Industries, PCI. On July 1, 1978, the two chambers merged, giving to the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In September of the same year, PCCI was recognized as election. Capital market development, energy and power, water utilities, environment, formal and technical vocational education, infrastructure development, intellectual property and innovation, international trade, local economic development, taxation services, tourism, and transportation and logistics. Covering business comprehensively to ensure the business expansion and country's future growth and progression through its partnership with the government, local chambers, and other stakeholders. PCCI's programs and services include enhancing business environment, SME development, environmental protection and management, corporate social responsibility, national and countryside development, business services, access to local and international training programs and scholarships, publications, breaking grounds with pioneering minds. PCCI is a dynamic force that offers its members fresh new ideas, new choices, and creative new approaches. From only a handful before the turn of the century, the PCCI family has grown to more than 1,600 direct members, more than 100 industry associations, more than 100 local chambers, and around 35,000 SMEs nationwide. To ensure alignment of its advocacies and activities, the PCCI works closely with government, other business groups, donor organizations, and international agencies, as well as the academe. The PCCI also provides a platform that links local firms with the global business community. PCCI also engages foreign chambers, diplomatic corps, international agencies in search of broader trade and economic cooperation. The Philippine Business Conference and Expo is the most important annual activity of the PCCI and one of the most prestigious events in the country. Local and foreign companies wanting to establish new ventures or seeking new markets find it highly attractive to attend due to the many benefits it offers. Every year, more than 800 stakeholders attend the conference, composed of key government officials, business leaders, diplomatic corps, foreign chambers, multilateral donor agencies, PCCI corporate members, bilateral business councils, local chamber and industry association leaders, with resourcefulness, ingenuity, collective ideas, and strength, the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry remains steadfast in its principles of business growth and development. Pioneering, innovating, and trailblazing. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry will remain as that, one voice of business in the country.
Lord, thank you for this day, for the presence of everyone in this call. For once again, we are gathered and given the opportunity to appreciate life and your words. Forgive us for our shortcomings and cleanse our hearts as we learn and live your words and example. Father, bless our endeavors, especially today's meeting. May you guide us in our discussions, and may you enlighten our minds in every decision that we make. Give us your grace that we may effectively do our parts for your greater glory. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, dalas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng bangaw, ay hinatang tulak, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iingin, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magtitingin. Lumang ang araw ng walang pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mag-amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Education shapes the future of the nation. It is the light that guides the student to the right path, and educators go out of their way to keep the light shining. No matter how difficult the terrain is.
Incubation period, which is not ordinarily like a normal virus, 3 or 4. Ito umaabot ng 14 days. Classes will be suspended.
We won't stop.
Yung pagdeklarar ninyo ng September 5, yun ang opening na magklase tayo, ay isang victory yan para sa education.
We shouldn't stop. Instead, we innovate.
Mayroon namang tinatawag na flexible learning options. Pwedeng may mga schools na handa na daw sila na magbukas ng online, mag-public o mag-private ng kanilang school lessons. Mayroon ding maraming through the cell phone.
Innovation has already started upon opening of classes, and technology played a major part in this leap. Blended learning has been the main strategy in education in the new normal. This process is a mix of traditional face-to-face instruction and other online methods. However, considering those who have limited access to technology and internet connection, offline learning methods have also been developed.
Because of the expected connectivity issues, some parents chose modular learning instead. In this setup, they'll collect the learning materials from the barangay hall and assist their children in studying its contents and answering the activity sheets.
This includes modules delivered to students, pre-recorded contents that can be accessed on their phones or computers, and lectures being broadcasted through the media.
Napansin namin na yung pinakamalaki para sa mga malalayong lugar ay sa radyo. So itong mga pamamaraan sa pagturo, ina-adjust natin. Kasama na din ang mga pagbabago ng ating curriculum. Hindi lamang yung pamamaraan sa pagturo, kundi ang content also ng ating curriculum, ating baguhin.
DOST has also been conducting research and launching apps that would help in the learning process, like the DOST courseware. There are more plans in store for the future of learning in the new normal. Let's look at this pandemic not as an obstacle, but an opportunity to innovate and cope up with the digital age. We can't do this alone. We need to do this together.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 10th National Education Forum. Before we proceed with the program proper, I would like to discuss a few webinar guidelines. First, it is encouraged that everyone should remain muted except with our guest speaking in the spotlight of Zoom. Lastly, we also encourage everyone to actively participate in our session later. You may use the Q&A box located in your screen to ask questions with our resource speakers after their presentations are through. Please pay attention and be virtually responsible. Thank you. Today, we have gathered here and invited each and every one of you from the academe, industry, and government to conclude this year's National Education Forum. With the current situations that we are all facing or experiencing during this COVID-19 pandemic from both domestic and global spheres, both public and private sectors are finding a concrete ways to further strengthen its partnership in response. This virtual forum of the PCCI Education Committee in partnership with the PhilExport is being conducted to discuss the various government, academe, industry responses in the new normal on the challenges and opportunities brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. The outcomes of this activity hope to provide additional inputs to various stakeholders in dealing with the alternative solutions confronting the present crisis. To formally begin with our program, may I now call on the chairman of the PCCI Education Committee, my friend, my idol, my mentor, Dr. Eduardo Gutierrez Ong. Hi, sir. Sir, nakamute po kayo. Opo,
Okay, okay na.
Yan po.
Yeah. Okay. So, pleasant afternoon to all. Ambassador Benedicto Yuhiko, PCCI President. Mr. Sergio June Ortiz Luis Jr., my idol, President of PhilExport and ECOP. Secretary Fortunato de la Peña of the Department of Science and Technology. Attorney Nepomuceno Malaluan, Undersecretary of the Department of Education. Commissioner Aldrin Darilag of the Commission on Higher Education. Ms. Rosalina Constantino, Assistant Secretary, Assistant Executive Director of TESDA. Dr. Alberto Penix, the President of the PCCI Human Resource Development Foundation. PCCI Board Members, Dr. Ruben Naive Jr., our 10th National Education Forum Chairperson. Colleagues from the academe, business community, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon to all of you. Before I formally continue, let me first congratulate the organizers of this significant event for being able to conclude this year's forum. We are all aware that we are currently in the time of pandemic, but we are here today virtually present for the 10th National Education Forum. This year's forum, ladies and gentlemen, is with a theme of government, academe, industry response to the new normal amidst COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. Provides great optimism amidst this time of crisis. This forum is a preparatory initiative to engage these three sectors in collaboration to promote competitive education in the new normal. We are gathered in this event not only to strengthen but to forge better collaboration between and among the government, academe, and industry. I am so happy to note that we have invited an array or a roster of distinguished individuals from the DOST, from DepEd, from TESDA, and CHED to discuss their initiatives, responses in the new normal concerning primary, basic, higher technical education, and science and technology amidst COVID-19 pandemic, and to help rebuild and recover the hard-hit education sector. As we are here today, I believe that this forum is a venue for our stakeholders to voice out and hear out their concerns dealing with this present crisis. So you are welcome to ask questions. No, it is no doubt that during this time, it is now changing how we live, work, and communicate with each other. It is reshaping the actual setting of everyone's day-to-day activity. COVID COVID-19 pandemic has made the education sector travel from the physical face-to-face classes into a blended and online learning setup. Educational challenges are now occurring. It is great worry of everyone, especially the academic community. If the quality of education is still at front, and many believes that education has turned into a survival mode as distance learning reinforces teaching and learning approaches that we know we are not actually working well. Yes, we are experiencing several challenges, but one thing we can always say and we can never doubt is the opportunities that this crisis has brought up. Blended learning approaches are being tried, tested, and increasingly used that will eventually result to a great thing that the future generation can rely on. Teaching and schools are receiving more respect, appreciation, growing this crisis helps to come up together across boundaries. This is now where us, the government, academia, and industry collaborations would come in. Government, academia, industry leaders, including the society as a whole. We can ask ourselves, how can we add up or contribute, innovate, and revise these policies that we would actually help cater our academic, industry, and state goals and objectives into this time of crisis. More so, with us all working together, the government, academia, and industry, we can make things happen. So we can make a difference. And finally, please allow me to welcome and extend my gratitude to all of you, to all the participants coming here virtually to participate in this very important event. I will no longer keep you waiting. I know that there are so many. We are excited to learn from our resource speakers, and I do hope that you will enjoy this event as much as the organizers prepared for it. And with it, let us all enjoy the afternoon learning session. Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. E.G. Ong, for a very warm message for us. Today, we are privileged to join with us no less than our annual partner for this focused advocacy of the Education Committee. To also give us a message, please let us all welcome Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., the President of the Philippine Exporters Confederation, or PhilExport.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
President, PCCI President Ambassador Benito, PCCI Chairman for Education, Dr. Eduardo Ong, other colleagues at the PCCI and PhilExport Board, Undersecretary Nepomuceno Malaluan of the Department of Education, Secretary Isidro La Peña of the Technical Education and Skills Development, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña of the Department of Science and Technology, Commissioner Prospero Rivera of the Commission of Higher Education, Chair Ruben Naive Jr., member of the panel, all of whom will be formally introduced later, other distinguished guests, partners, and friends, ladies and gentlemen. With the abrupt advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are a lot of discussion on how education will be, especially now that most students are stuck in their homes. Still, the question that won't go away is, will e-learning affect the academic performance of our students and the teachers, and how will quality education continue? Due to the pandemic, the education sector in the Philippines is now somewhat at a recession, which puts the future generation at risk. The crisis manifested the dilemma policymakers now between extension to close schools, reducing contact and saving lives, or to open them, allowing workers to work and maintaining the economy. The severe short-term disruption is felt by many families because of the unemployment this pandemic caused and the difficulty of some students and teachers in adapting to e-learning and internet access. Some parents also preferred to not let the children continue studying virtually because they cannot afford paying for the internet connection and the gadgets needed. Homeschooling is not only a shock to parents' productivity, but also to children's social life and learning. Teaching is moving online on an untested and unprecedented scale. Students' assessments are also moving online with a lot of trial and error and uncertainty for everyone. Many assessments simply being concealed. Importantly, these interruptions will not just be short-term issue, but can also have long-term consequences for the affected cohorts and are likely to increase inequality. Despite all of that, what is certain is that e-learning has been at the forefront in helping the schools, students, and teachers maintain and continue their educational learning, academic performances, and employment. There is a silver lining, though. In contrast to the standstill or face-to-face of traditional education, e-learning did not displace the traditional learning and is only assisting schools in maintaining to provide quality education until students are allowed to go back to school again in the new normal. Because as far as we all know, this pandemic is not forever, and soon things will go back to a more resilient economy. I'm talking about improvement of global systems finally incorporating advanced technology and usage of internet creative solutions in the education system and in addressing the need for lifelong learning. Tibet, apprenticeships, and skills development so as when this type of crisis happens again, they will be prepared and provide better quality of e-learning. In all these discussions, it is essential to know the importance of technology because it enabled us to be of service to our clients and students regardless of the current situation. Even prior to the COVID-19 health crisis, there have been several teaching methodologies that have proven to be a disaster resilient. We must understand today the challenges that we will have to face in the future and consequently be able to draw possible directions and interventions to overcome them. With the help of the government, industry, and academe responses, I am certain that we will overcome these challenges we are facing in the education sector. The Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, for instance, is gearing up in adapting the new normal after the pandemic to its Oplan TESDA Abot Lahat, Tibet towards the new normal. Operational plan. The operational plan aims to assist society adapt and adjust to the new normal by introducing flexible and technology-based Tibet arrangements, prioritizing agribusiness courses, and assessing and adjusting test system responsive to future crises. It will involve immediate response of TESDA during this crisis, ensuring safety and security and the regular implementation of programs under the new normal conditions. They will be prioritizing these identified sectors in the plan, namely agriculture, health, ICT, and construction. We at the export sector are happy that TESDA has a plan such as this, considering that many of our member companies are dependent on skilled workers. Today's National Education Forum, therefore, serves as an important and relevant platform for government officials, educational institutions, business leaders, and policymakers in pushing forward advocacies on challenges and opportunities of education, such as their responses in the new normal amidst COVID-19, and in strengthening government-academic industry linkages. The compounding need for a structured tripartite partnership will be further highlighted later in the presentations to set systems in place and mobilize resources to actualize our advocacies in this area. The forum will also provide us with the best practices on improving educational design, as well as help us plot our ways forward in future-proofing educational learning in the Philippines. Let me end my remark by emphasizing that the future of our country and its students is more than just securing education for them. It is also about trickling down more employment opportunities and personal expansion to those in the rural areas and informal sector. Thus, our inclusive national economic development agenda. With this, I invite everyone to continue to work together so that we can use technology to work for us better. Thank you and good afternoon to everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. At this point, it is also an honor and a privilege that the PCCI hardworking president is also joining us here today to give us an opening statement. Please give your virtual warm welcome to Ambassador Benedicto Yuico, the President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Thank you, Roman. Before I begin, I'd like to say that I like your hat. It looks nice on you. Anyway, kindly permit me to acknowledge the very important guest speakers and participants, whether already present or will be present at a later time. Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, Department of Science and Technology. Commissioner Aldrin A. Darilag, Commission on Higher Education. Undersecretary Nepomuceno A. Malaluan, Department of Education, Ms. Rosalina S. Constantino, Assistant Executive Director, TESDA, Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., President, Employers Confederation of the Philippines and PhilExport, and Honorary Chairman and Treasurer of PCCI, Mr. Eduardo G. Ong, Chairman, PCCI Education Committee, Dr. Alberto Phoenix, Chairman, PCCI HRD Committee, Dr. Ruben M. Naive Jr., Chair, NEF 2020. Friends and colleagues in the Chamber Movement, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. On behalf of the Board of Directors and Officers of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to extend my warmest gratitude to all of you for participating in this very important function. This year's National Education Forum comes at a critical time when government, industry, and academia have to closely work together to mitigate the severe challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we will discuss the dynamic transitioning of our economy into the digital era. As you may already have known, I am placing innovation front and center of PCCI's advocacy. PCCI believes that innovation will be the catalyst to drive our economy to the next level and allow our country to be a more dynamic and progressive nation. The global health crisis has significantly restricted the movement of people, and this has resulted to much lower levels of economic and social activity. Our schools and students encounter a multitude of difficulties in adapting to distance learning. We are compelled to use virtual platforms because we need to follow health protocols. With these current conditions in education, we in PCCI are pushing for the creation of the Congressional Commission in Education to review, assess, and evaluate the formal, non-formal, and alternative learning systems, including continuing systems of education at all levels. While the 1990 joint resolution that created the EDCOM yielded recommendations that led to major educational reforms, there were vital EDCOM proposals that did not materialize to effect change needed in the educational system. Even prior to the pandemic, there were many areas that necessitated educational reforms. For example, the results of the Program for International Students Assessment, they call it PISA, where the Philippines ranked last, kulelat, in mathematics, and second to the last, second to the kulelat, in science among 79 countries that participated, reflect the urgent need to address this weakness. We understand that the current situation has been very challenging to the educational system, learning institutions, teachers, learners, and even their families. Moreover, the changing demands of the fourth industrial revolution, or the so-called digital revolution, have placed added pressure for the education sector to proactively respond. The PCCI, therefore, is pushing for the creation of EDCOM 4.0 and supports the Senate Joint Resolution number 10 of January 2020, calling for the new Congressional Commission on Education. To ensure that the gap between the learning outcomes of education and the required competencies of the world of work is reduced, PCCI urges the business, economic, and industry sectors to be involved in the review, assessment, and evaluation of the educational systems, as well as in the educational policy development. We urge the government to be agile and proactive in its optimal response to improve the quality of education in the country that will allow us to produce workers needed by Industry 4.0. Moving forward, we should steadily anchor our programs and processes on new technologies. Innovation can bring access to products and services to entirely new and bigger markets. It can also give people more opportunities to learn and earn in new ways, opening up new opportunities that have not been previously available. Here's some good news. There will be a vaccine against COVID soon. Yesterday, Pfizer of the United States announced positive third-stage clinical trials that showed 90% positive results. I think it's not too early to plan our lives post-COVID. I believe the recovery is at hand. It might be a slow, U-shaped economic recovery for the Philippines, but it will be the start of the recovery nonetheless. Just look at our neighbors, Vietnam, China, and Taiwan, just to name a few. They were already able to overcome COVID and now are able to produce positive GDP numbers. God willing, by this time next year, students will be back in schools, employees will be at the workplace, malls will be crowded, and life will be good again. I would like to congratulate the organizers of this 10th National Education Forum for bringing stakeholders together to forge stronger collaboration and partnerships to develop education programs and strategies that would yield the graduates with skill sets needed by technology and industry to hasten our economic development. There is no reason why our graduates have to seek employment outside of our country. There should be no reason why our talented young engineers and other workers have to go abroad to sharpen their skills and live a good life. We at PCCI are totally dedicated to collaborating and cooperating with all of you so our young people can fulfill their dreams in their own country. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Iwico. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first session of this year's forum. This session will highlight and tackle about the hashtag, the new normal in primary and secondary education sectors amidst COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. To start this session, I would like to introduce with you our invited resource speaker, who is the Undersecretary and Chief of Staff of the Secretary at the Department of Education. He provides overall supervision to a number of priority programs of the Office of the Secretary, including the NEAP, or National Educators Academy of the Philippines, Transformation, Sulong Edukalidad, and now the Learning Continuity Plan in the time of COVID-19. He represents the department in various interagency processes, such as the Cabinet Assistance System. He also represents DepEd in the SDG 2030 Global Steering Committee. He obtained his BS Economics and Bachelor's of Laws from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Undersecretary Attorney Nepomuceno A. Malaluan. Welcome po, sir.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much to the leaders and members of the PCCI, to my colleagues in government, especially those that are co-presenters for this afternoon, to all our friends and all of those that are participating in today's 10th National Education Forum of PCCI. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat, and I thank PCCI for this opportunity to share with all of you DepEd's perspectives on the new normal in basic education amid COVID-19. May I ask my colleague AJ to flash my slides? There are I prepared 39 slides, but I will not go through all of them in detail uh, and breeze through the some of the slides and focus on the ones that are of greater relevance for today's forum. Next slide, please. So my outline, while we are looking at COVID-19, I felt it important to provide the bigger picture, and the bigger picture would require us to look back into where we were at the point of the onset of COVID-19, and that takes us back to look at what the state of basic education is in terms of access, and our biggest challenge, as mentioned by our leaders of PCCI, especially Ambassador Yuiko, on the quality of basic education. And then I will provide a short description of how we have adjusted to COVID-19, and then look at the broad policy responses that includes the preparation for PISA 2022 that was also mentioned. And finally, it's just one slide, but it is an important slide because it takes us to what the implications are by COVID-19 on future policy in basic education. So next slide, please. I would like to start by by sharing a brief background on where we are in basic education at the onset of COVID-19. With respect to, next slide, to access to basic education, over the years, we have made really significant gains in access to basic education. Right now, we have 61,900 schools nationwide, combined public and private, of which 47,000 schools are operated by the Department of Education. And prior to COVID-19, in the last school year, next slide please, we were catering to a little over 27 million learners from kindergarten to grade 12 in the formal schools, combined public and private. Next slide. Our participation rates, as you can see in the next slides, are already very high, not only in the basic education, but also progressing very appreciably with respect to secondary education up to senior high school. uh, as noted earlier, our biggest challenge really lies in the quality of our basic education, and the mandate for the government and the state is to provide access to not just any education, but to quality basic education. It is not one of deterioration. It is one of having stagnated in terms of quality, as shown by our historical indicators in the large-scale assessments. We administer national large-scale assessments to look into the proficiencies of our learners. And as you can see in this table, for example, the ones on the left side from 0 represents the greater proportion in the low proficient to not proficient levels, and they outnumber the ones that are performing in the near proficient and the proficient and high proficient levels on the right side. And this has been going on for quite some time. And it is for the reason of really addressing the challenge of quality in basic education that we, for the first time, participated in the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA. Next slides, please. Um, Next slide. That is coordinated by OECD on every 3 years. And we participated for the first time in the 2018 round. We knew the political risks of joining the PISA because of its ranking system and our historical performance in the national uh, assessment test, or not. And we did so. The secretary made the decision to join PISA in order to signal our determination to confront the challenge of quality in basic education, to find our standing in terms of global standards, and to take advantage of an assessment designed and constantly updated by education experts, as well as to have data for further study on quality. And as was already mentioned by the ambassador, we placed last in reading. We did not perform well in PISA, and second to the last in mathematics and science. We do have some bright spots. Next slide. We have schools, particularly science-oriented schools, that performed very well in PISA. And we do have top learners that perform well in international competition. And the passing rate also of our senior high school in the senior high school TechVoc graduates, they do perform well in the TESDA national certification. I just want to show one slide with respect to reading. For example, next slide, please. This shows the performance of the top 20 public schools with the mean scores above the Philippine mean score. And you can see that at least 2 of them, science-oriented schools, the Pasig City Science High School and the Regional Science High School for Region 6, surpassed the average mean scores for the OECD countries. So we do have schools that have the capacity to compete with the advanced countries of the world. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. And just showing also in slide 15 our performance in international competitions, academic competitions. And in slide 16, our senior high school graduates test the certification performance, getting certification rates of nearly 92% of those taking the ENS national certification exams of TESDA. But having said that, while there are bright spots, as we emphasize that the biggest challenge of basic education in the country is presently the quality of basic education. And it is within that context that state that COVID-19 came to our shores and to the rest of the world. And our response to COVID-19, as you all know now, was to not give up on continuing learning opportunities even in the context of COVID. Next slide, please. We uh, uh, immediately after the end of the last school year, we already prepared a learning continuity plan to ensure that we will be able to provide learning opportunities for our children, but at the same time, ensuring that we are able to protect the health, safety, and well-being of our learners. And when we are allowed to do so again, to come back to schools, we need to ensure that we can facilitate safe return to schools. We also note that because of the situation that learning continuity will entail a lot of equity considerations and concerns, and we must endeavor to address them as best we can. Having said that, as even as we look at learning continuity, we must still not lose sight of making the most out of the situation in order to uh, not to leave behind addressing the challenge of quality in basic education. And just an update to everyone. Next slide. We anticipated that by learning continuity, we will lose some of our learners because, as mentioned, some of them are affected. Next slide, please. Um, have been affected by the economic dislocation, and some are also wary of participating in learning activities in the time of with COVID still around. The adjusted enrollment rate we submitted to the NEDA as an adjustment to the Philippine Development Plan was we estimated that enrollment will be just at 80% of last year's enrollment. But as you can see in our November 3 data, our present enrollment in combined public and private has already reached 90% of our last year's enrollment. And in fact, in the public sector, in the formal education, our enrollment for this year has already surpassed our enrollment data for last year by a little over 2%, which gives us an indication not only of the trust of our learners and parents on continuing learning opportunities, but also really their desire to continue with education even in the context of COVID-19. What are our policy responses in the big picture that addresses the challenges of the basic education at the point of the onset of COVID-19, as well as with the impact of COVID-19? We believe that we cannot dissociate the two. They must be consistent with each other and must still continue with the thrust of addressing the challenge of quality. And it is for that reason that pre-COVID, sometime in November of 2019, we launched a major program, next slide, called Sulong Edukalidad, which comprises four key pillars of aggressive reforms for quality. The first is the K-12 curriculum review and update, the continuous improvement of our learning environment, and the professional development of our teachers and school leaders to upskill and reskill them to be responsive to the demands of human resource development and education at this time. And the other is to ensure the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. The curriculum review is currently ongoing. It is anticipated to have the reports come in to the secretary by early next year. But some of the preliminary uh, findings, next slide, are the needs for greater clarity in the wording of competencies, um, the observation of congestion, and so on. And so we are working with a number of institutions along with our bureaus for the review of the K-12 curriculum. Uh, and we intend to come up with curriculum adjustments by 21st quarter of 2022 to take into consideration also the insights that we have from the present COVID-19 learning continuity plan, the findings of the review, as well as the insights from PISA. Next slide. With respect to the improving of the learning environment, this you can see that in our priorities as contained in the General Appropriations Act. Next slide. But a key pillar of our program interventions for education quality is really the teachers upskilling and reskilling, and we are embarking presently on the what we call the transformation of the National Educators Academy of the Philippines. It is a 1985 institution created as early as that, but intended to be the primary professional development arm of the Department of Education for teachers and school leaders, but over the years has not really evolved into what it was originally intended and we intended for, and we are recovering that for the to be able to be responsive to the demands of the present. In the next slides, you can see the key elements of the NAEP transformation that involves both organizational and program transformation, but a big part of that is the integration of our professional development program and linking it to the Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers as well as for the career progression within the department. Next slide. We are also recovering our physical facilities for professional development, such as our NAEP training facility in the Baguio Teachers Camp. And finally, the last component of our Sulong Edukalidad is the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration, including the convening of the Philippine Forum for Accessible Quality Basic Education. And this includes bilateral and multilateral institutions, the business sector. I believe PCCI is part of the Education Forum and education-oriented organizations and academic institutions. Next slide. Now, some of the insights from PISA just to share with you, because since we have gotten the results of PISA, we have not stopped really mining the data and information from PISA. And one of that is on curriculum alignment. While there is strong curriculum alignment in reading, mathematics, and science with respect to the PISA standards, We lack in interaction with digital environment, contextualization of context with real life situations and problems, and exposure to higher order thinking. We also are conducting items analysis of the PISA questions and the performance of our learners. And what we find is that our learners can handle simple multiple choice questions, but find difficulty handling complex multiple choice and open response questions. Our learners also find difficulty in handling questions with high cognitive demands, such as formulating situations mathematically. Next slide, one key insight from PISA is that access to computers and internet at home is a factor. Across proficiency groups, the students report that they get instruction or receive instruction on various digital reading literacy skills. However, the PISA surveys also indicate that many of the students in the Philippine national sample do not have home computers and home internet access. And the proportion of the students without access to computers or the internet at home uh, corresponds very strongly with their performance in PISA as well. So it is not just what happens at the school, but also the resources and what happens at the home that is critical for improving PISA performance. Next slide, very quickly. Still, not all countries participate in PISA. There are only 79 countries that participate, and we are among, I think, third among the countries with the lowest GDP per capita in terms of purchasing power parity. Next slide. We also find that language is a factor in PISA, where students who do not speak the language of instruction at home is very high in the Philippines. In other words, the medium of instruction of English for math, science, and reading in English is not the same language that our learners speak at their home. We are, next slide, preparing for PISA 2022. It was supposed to be conducted in 2021, but the consensus among the countries is to defer it by 1 year, and we have not stopped in our preparations for PISA 2022, even with the COVID-19. So I will go to my last slide on the implications of COVID-19. So I've given the broader picture of the challenge of quality in basic education. We have said that our response to COVID-19 was to push for learning continuity through blended learning, as was mentioned earlier. There are challenges, but we believe that on the whole, it is important that we do not cease the learning and education of our students even at this time. But really, we look at the basic education learning continuity plan or the continuity of education in the time of COVID, not just as an emergency response, but it is actually an investment into the future. Yes, we will get the vaccine at some point and things will come back to pre-COVID times, but education will never be the same again. And our learning continuity allows us the opportunity to look into these developments for the future and actually participate and have a hands-on experience in it. And just to note some of these areas that COVID-19 brings to the fore. The first is the exploration of technology for remote learning, and we believe that remote learning will be a future or a feature of education for the future under normal circumstances, blending it with blending various remote learning technologies and approaches and pedagogy, increasing the capacity of our learners for self-directed learning, even as we combine it with face-to-face learning that we cannot really do away with. The number two is the need to put the context of our learnings from COVID-19 into the reframing of the curriculum. We see now the importance of multiliteracies, for example, such as awareness of health and epidemics, and uh, as key skills and competencies of our learners to be able to deal with situations as we have seen. Financial literacy, for example, is very important in order to cope with episodes of economic dislocation, and mental health right now is also a key indicator how to deal with very stressful conditions. And this is directed to the entire academe industry and education sector, not just basic education, is how do we really anticipate the educational opportunities from innovation that are happening as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are also seeing the importance of reinforcing learning sciences with progressive assessments, analytics, in understanding education and interventions. And finally, we have seen that COVID-19 has changed the concept and the features of the learning space, not just confined to the classroom and schools, but now extending to the home and to community spaces as well as the virtual space. And actually, the secretary has directed the relevant units, and we will reach out to various sectors, including the private sector, in the conceptualization and design of the learning space in the context of our experience from COVID. As I mentioned, that the learning space should be reimagined, redesigned, reconceptualized to include not just the classroom and schools, but even the home and community learning spaces and the virtual learning space. And so we believe that learning continuity has provided us an opportunity to look into these implications for education in the future, not just from a conceptual basis, but by learning from our own experience. So I'd like to end there. I can comment also on the EDCOM later, but I'd end for now with my sharing on the implications of COVID-19 on the new normal in basic education. Maraming salamat. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Yusek Nepomuceno Malaluan, for the very informative presentation. Sir, advocacy ko rin po kasi na mag-empower ng mga students, business professionals, and then mga MSME entrepreneurs natin. Sa ngayon talaga, kita ko dahil dito sa COVID-19, marami pong dapa sa negosyo, no? At marami rin pong depressed, no? Pagdating sa business. Kaya in my own little way, I am trying to contribute para kahit papaano maibsan natin ang ating mga kababayan na naghihirap ngayon. Meron po dito, sir, na question dito po sa chat box para po ito sa inyo. Ito po, no? Galing po kay Rodrigo Calapan. Ang tanong niya po, sir, what would be the program of DepEd regarding the upskilling and reskilling of teachers in private institutions? Do you have any scholarship and or program regarding private educational support, especially on the professional development of private school teachers? Yun po yung anong galing kay Rodrigo Calapan.
Well, right now, itong aming NAEP transformation, the National Educators Academy of the Philippines that is undergoing transformation, is primarily oriented towards our more than 800,000 public school teachers and probably another 50,000 school leaders. But you are correct that I mean, not all private schools are the big advanced private schools that we know. There are also small private schools that also require a professional development help, and at the proper time I believe that we will extend the services of the NAEAP to our private school teachers. But for right now, especially in the context of its transition in the NAEAP transformation that I mentioned, it is heavily oriented towards the public school teachers and school leaders.
Okay po, maraming pong salamat. Sir, meron pa po isang tanong. Galing kay Joel Tan Torres. Basahin ko po, no? Yusek Nepomuceno, how extensive is the coordination between DepEd and CHED to address the issue on higher education concerns on the quality of high school students taking up college studies?
Well, the as I mentioned earlier, the challenge of quality of basic education, central to that are the teachers. At the end of the day, the learning and instruction emanate from our teachers with necessary support of the resources and facilities. And when we talk about the capacity of the teachers, it is not just through their in-service professional development, but the teacher preparation is also very important. And the teacher preparation happens at our teacher education institutions, and that is overseen by the Commission on Higher Education. And we are really looking to strengthen, as you mentioned, the coordination and synergy of policy direction in terms of one, the at least the minimum professional standards for teachers graduates. I think it's not just CHED, but also the licensure examination has also have to be reviewed in order to see if it is responsive to the dynamic changes in the standards of quality. For example, we were checking and really the discipline for let's say the multiple choice exam, the simple multiple choice exam, and the more complex multiple choice exam. That's still the norm even in the teaching in higher education institution for teachers. So it there are moves there. For example, there is a bill in the Senate filed by Senator Win Gatchalian on reforming the Teacher Education Council. In fact, the TEC is meeting right now on this bill. I think we need to really reactivate the role of the Secretary of the Department of Education as chair of the advisory board of CHED. But the long and short of it is that there are gaps and need for improvement in the coordination. And I think it must be seen also in the context of EDCOM. I mean, the trifocalization of the education sector emanated from EDCOM. So it's not just probably a matter of the one that was mentioned by the ambassador. It's not just a matter of are there things that were not done, but I think the review of the EDCOM report of the first EDCOM must be looked at in terms of the requirements of the day. Were the policy directions from the original EDCOM still responsive to the present conditions? Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, no, sir. Meron ditong nag-message sa akin, sir, no? Ang tanong po niya, galing po kay Dr. Ruben Naive, will participating in PISA a major performance indicator for our basic education in the country?
Yes, it should be, because that's the reason why we joined it. As I mentioned, we are looking at the insights that we're getting from PISA. Of course, our bureaus would emphasize that there are other performance indicators that need to be taken into consideration in terms of the ability of our learners. But at the same time, we must still be able to benchmark the proficiencies and performance of our learners with the emerging norms in terms of international standards. And we are seeing a lot of lessons from PISA, and we are, as I mentioned, doing interventions, addressing them. And our continued participation in PISA should be sustained to see whether our interventions are bearing fruit. So yes, it will have to be a performance indicator of basic education, and we have embraced it. Even as we mentioned, the decision came with a political risk, given our anticipated, even from within, in light of our past performance in NAT. But we really want to signal the need to address the challenge of quality in basic education, and we should not fear being assessed and evaluated against certain empirical standards, such as PISA.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Yusek. No? Ako naman po, sir, no, so sobrang init ng discussion natin ngayon at gusto naming entertain ng maraming question. Maaari na lang po nating try nating magtulungan tayo, sir. Kasi ako, I also represent Philippine Marketing Association, and our advocacy is to promote marketing excellence, no, by empowering teachers natin. Baka po pwede tayo mag-collaborate after this, and then sa mga gusto pa po mga magtatanong, ilagay nyo lang po dito sa chat box at pipilitin po namin sagutin through chat box ni Sir after ng session niya later. So again, thank you again, Yusek Nepomuceno. But before we close this session, I would like to request everyone in the panelist section to open your cameras to have a virtual photo with Yusek. Paki-on lang po muna natin ang ating mga camera. Picture-picture muna po tayo, mga panelists. Okay, sir? Paki-on lang po. Yan, Doc Ong. Si Sir Ambassador. Medyo i-ayos lang po natin, then picture-picture tayo. Okay, JL, ikaw na. Ayan, paki-on lang po lahat para meron tayong groovy. Virtual, yan. Ma'am Grace, sige po. Sir Naibe, ayan, open lang po natin para may picture-picture tayo. Yan, antay lang po natin yung iba.
Okay po, smile po.
Ayun. Okay.
On behalf of Secretary Briones, magandang hapon po kay Secretary De La Peña.
Okay, thank you po. No? Marami pong salamat. Finally, this session has come to an end. We would like to express our sincerest appreciation with our invited resource speaker. Okay, our plaque, in our screen, our plaque of appreciation for Yusek Nepomuceno Malaluan. Ayan po. And babasahin ko po, no? Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Education Committee presents this plaque of appreciation to Yusek Nepomuceno A. Malaluan, Department of Education or DepEd, as a token as a token of our appreciation for sharing his expertise and insights as a resource speaker on the topic, the new normal in primary and secondary education sector amidst COVID-19, challenges and opportunities during the 10th National Education Forum, given this 10th day of November 2020 at the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Taguig City, Philippines. Signed by our PCCI Chairman for Education, Dr. Eduardo Gutierrez Ong. Maraming pong salamat, sir. Ito na po ang aming pasasalamat na plaque of appreciation.
Yes, thank you.
Booster. Now, let's now proceed to our second session. This session will highlight and talk on the new normal in technical education sector amidst COVID-19, challenges and opportunities. I would like to introduce with everyone our resource or second resource speaker, who is Ms. Rosalina S. Constantino, the Assistant Executive Director, Planning Office of the Technical Education and Skills Authority, or TESDA. TESDA is the lead government agency in the Philippines tasked to manage and oversee the technical vocational education and training, or TVET, sector in the country. As the authority of TVET, TESDA exercises its leadership in the areas of providing the overall policies and direction, developing systems and setting standards, supporting TVET provision and building capacity of TESDA and its partners in delivering relevant TVET programs. Ms. Constantino is a graduate of the University of Santo Tomas and earned her master's degree in government management in the Pamantasan ng Maynila in 2014. She rose from the ranks and has been serving the government for 20 years now. Her extensive career in government enabled her to gain significant knowledge and experience on technical vocational education and training, management and quality management systems. Now, please let us all welcome Ms. Rosalina Constantino. Ma'am, welcome po.
Thank you, Roman. So good afternoon to all. Let me first share my screen. So to the Ambassador Benedicto Yuwico, PCCI President, Mr. Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., President of Phil Export, Dr. E.G. Ong, PCCI Chairman for Education, Yusek Nepomuceno Malaluan, Department of Education, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, Department of Science and Technology, Commissioner Aldrin Darilag of Commission on Higher Education, other distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, pleasant afternoon to all. And thank you for inviting TESDA to be part of the 10th National Education Forum. Let me start my presentation by giving this context. This COVID-19 pandemic has indeed changed the way we do things, such as in education, work, and entertainment. Based on online research, this pandemic has seen an 82% plunge on the use of retail and recreational facilities among consumers. But on the other hand, it has increased their online purchases. Moreover, the quarantine and lockdowns have forced businesses and offices on remote operations. Thus, the overwhelming 354% increase in the use of the Zoom platform, like what we are using now. Sadly, however, is the impact of this pandemic in education, which reached to 1.04 billion affected students worldwide. Given this, COVID-19 has in fact forced us to adapt to the fourth industrial revolution. Just to reiterate this point, let me show this slide. You can see the 10 technology trends during this pandemic as presented by the World Economic Forum. online shopping and robot deliveries, digital and contactless payments, remote working, distance learning, telehealth, online entertainment, supply chain 4.0, 3D printing, robotics and drones, 5G, and ICT. We see that COVID-19 demonstrated the importance of digital readiness among us, especially our learners and workers. And in Tibet, we play a pivotal role in helping industries and workers stay competitive in this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. As a brief background, let me first share TESDA's mandate and thrusts. TESDA, as the Tibet Authority in the Philippines, has the mandate to ensure that we are responsive to these economic and labor market changes and needs. The National Technical Education and Skills Development Plan, or NTSDP 2018 to 2022, which is anchored on the country's medium-term plan, the Philippine Development Plan 2017 to 2022, the long-term goal of Ambition 19 2040, as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals, is the national policy in which all of our programs and initiatives are anchored on. With the NTSDP strategic thrust, there are two strategic thrusts in our NTSDP, which is first, the Tibet for Global Competitiveness and Workforce Readiness. And in this thrust, we are making our presence, the Philippine-Tibet presence in the international arena. So first, we have already launched the ASEAN-Tibet Council, wherein the Philippines is the first chair of this council. We are also aligning to international standards. We are working on the guidelines on the Dublin and Sydney Accord alignment of our standards. Recognition of diploma programs, because we all know that we have to develop technologists and technicians. We also participate in skills competition. So we have the ASEAN Skills Competition, wherein we will host by 2022. And we also participate in the World Skills Competition. We also have ongoing workings with the Asian Development Bank on the establishment of innovation centers in the entire country. We are making our presence and strengthening our presence globally by engaging in these initiatives. The second thrust of our national TSD plan is the Tibet for Social Equity and Poverty Reduction, wherein we provide services to all those who were underserved or those who are in the far-flung areas, such in the marginalized sectors, such as the former rebels, drug dependents, surrenderies, indigenous peoples, persons deprived of liberty, and so on. So we have several success stories. One among them is the AGAC Center. This is a partnership with the industry wherein we capacitate the IT community in the mountain areas, in the JIDA areas, and help them make their crops, make their harvests more productive, and engage them with the industry partners so that they will be able to sell their products better and have more income. We also have a study tapping program wherein a community will be earning 80,000 a month for 100 coconut trees. So there are several success stories, and we have beneficiaries like in the former rebels, wherein they earn already 29,000 because they were given upskilling and they were absorbed by the Philippine Army. So they're now earning 29,000 a month. There are also who joined the KAFGA, wherein they have 4,500 monthly income. There are also those who have established their side street business, food, cum laundry services, and construction businesses, which is earning 3,000 a month. This may not be enough, or this may not be so much for most of you, but for those who were earning less in the previous before, this is a big improvement already in their livelihood. In the COVID-19, TESDA has worked harder to remain relevant and contribute to the efforts of the government in the fight against this virus. In response to this crisis, as what was mentioned earlier, we developed our agency's operational plan, TESDA Abot Lahat, Pivot Towards the New Normal, which is also aligned with the national TSD plan. It is divided in three implementation phases. Phase 1 was last March to June, which is the survival phase. This involved our immediate response during the crisis. Phase 2, or the transitional phase, is where we transition TESDA's action plans, programs, and activities to the new normal of doing things. Phase 3, or the structural phase, which will be implemented in 2021 onwards, will be the start of regular implementation of all TESDA programs under the new normal conditions. The priority sectors under the OPLAN are agriculture, construction, health, and ICT, which is in line with the government's thrust on ensuring food security, supporting the flagship Build infrastructure program for economic recovery, providing adequate medical care, and strengthening connectivity. The TESDA Online Program, or the TOP, is a free or open educational resource. The TESDA Online Program was established in 2012. However, given the pandemic, it has gained traction and has become the alternative mode of learning during the quarantine period. So we have 71 courses in several sectors like the ICT, tourism, human health care, maritime, trainers methodology, automotive, entrepreneurship, agriculture, electronics, and heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So from 2012 up to present, we have registered 2.2 million users. We have 71 free online courses. And from the 2.2 million users, 854,000 were registered during the pandemic, which was started in March up to present. And also from the 854,000 which registered and enrolled in March, 61,000 of which were OFWs and their dependents. We are also partnering with Amazon Web Services and the DICT to accommodate more user traffic in the TESDA Online program. We are also partnering with several organizations to strengthen the TESDA Online program system and provide more online courses such as Microsoft, Skills to Succeed Academy, UP Open University, Aboitiz, and USAID, among others, to have more training programs in the system and further strengthen the TESDA Online program's platform and learning management system. During the pandemic as well, we have engaged our TESDA technology institutions in producing face masks, face shields, protective bodysuits, goggles, aerosol boxes, sanitizers and disinfectants, assorted fruits and vegetables from our TESDA mini organic farms, rice, food packs, and baked products. This was through training co-production and which were all donated to our frontliners. The agency will continue to expand and increase its training programs in health-related qualifications to produce more equipped and competitive health practitioners and effectively respond to health crises in the communities. Also, as the government continues to pursue aggressive testing, tracing, and treatment as among the strategies to fight COVID-19, TESDA has developed the contact tracing program in anticipation of the demand for additional 50,000 contact tracers. The program lasts for 15 days or 120 hours of full online mode of training delivery with 8 hours of training per day. We are also pursuing the flexible learning delivery system to ensure the continuous delivery of TVET programs. The guidelines in implementing flexible learning in TVET was also issued to make TVET resilient against educational disruptions and responding to the challenges of the digital economy. So from June to September 2020, there were a total of 4,887 TVET trainers capacitated on facilitating e-learning sessions. Multiplier trainings are likewise being done in the regions. 2,748 Tibet programs have already been issued with certificates of recognition to enable public and private TVIs to implement flexible learning. Within the priority sectors of TESDA, 130 competency-based learning materials exemplars were also developed. Let me now share TESDA's plan and strategies to survive, revive, and thrive in this VUCA world. My presentation will actually be focused on the Tibet 4.0 framework, which is anchored on the NTSDP's goal of a vibrant quality Tibet for decent work and sustainable inclusive growth, and the plan's two-pronged strategies of Tibet for global competitiveness and workforce readiness and Tibet for social equity and poverty reduction. I want to reiterate that these two thrusts guide us to be forward-looking to ensure that we meet the skills needs of our constituents now and in the future, and to ensure that we do not leave anyone behind in terms of access to quality Tibet programs, particularly those disadvantaged and marginalized. As the national TSD plan is the sectoral plan, the Tibet Philippines 4.0 framework provide us the specific strategies in which we shall be addressing the fourth industrial revolution requirements and how we will cope with the better or the new normal and beyond. While the national TSD plan provides the general directions and thrusts of the Tibet sector in the medium term, the fourth IR framework explains specific strategies that are more forward-looking and are focused on preparing the workforce for future skills and emerging technologies. We have developed this framework pre-COVID, and now we see that this is how the Tibet sector will cope, survive, revive, and thrive for a better normal towards the fourth industrial revolution. Tibet being part of the education system, our focus is the learner. In the fourth industrial revolution framework, we want to develop 4.0 equipped learners that have the three core skill sets: STEM skills, emotional skills, and essential skills, most of which are also referred to as the 21st century skills. Listed here are the essential skills needed for our learners to thrive in the world of the fourth industrial revolution and the better normal. So these are the following: complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, coordinating with others, emotional intelligence, judgment and decision making, service orientation, negotiation, and cognitive flexibility. If you will notice, the ones shown here are devoid of hard and or technical skills. These are what we call foundational skills in the sense that they equip our trainees with the tools needed for them to be adaptive and resilient in light of the changing skills requirements brought about by the fourth industrial revolution. The Future of Jobs Report 2018 by the World Economic Forum also shows that executives desired employees with critical thinking and collaboration skills even more than those with technical skills. Presented here is the totality of the Tibet Philippines 4.0 framework and its strategies. These are not new concepts. In fact, most of, if not all of the strategies under this framework are already being implemented by TESDA. It is just a matter of recalibrating these programs to make sure they address the unique challenge of the better normal and the fourth industrial revolution. These challenges include teaching a learner a skill set for a job that may not yet exist today, but will most definitely be in demand in the future, or capacitating a trainee to be able to teach in-demand fourth IR skills, or introducing research and innovation and intensifying partnerships, or inculcating a culture of lifelong learning, not just in the Tibet sector, but the whole Philippine education system. The actions that will be undertaken to achieve each strategy will be developed and implemented in consultation with Tibet stakeholders, including the learners or the trainees. So the first part would be the Tibet policies, development of policy issuances that will serve as guide in the implementation of programs. To provide the groundwork on which Tibet programs for the fourth IR can be implemented, TESDA as the authority in Tibet must develop and promulgate responsive and agile policies that would include institutionalizing lifelong learning, not just within TESDA, but throughout the entire Philippine education system. This entails working very closely with our counterpart education agencies, the Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education. We also need to strengthen our existing consultation mechanisms to make sure our stakeholders' voices are heard, and this includes the learners. To ensure that we respond quickly to the industry requirements, we have reduced the process cycle time of development of competency standards and program registration. We are also glad to inform you that we have developed a new competency standards framework and is working on the packaging rules for the supermarket of competencies. Likewise, to ensure that we have a sector-focused area-based training delivery, we are strengthening our TESDA technology institutions, advisory councils, and the provincial and regional technical education and skills development committees. Finally, we have to look at our TESDA board and see where we can further optimize its function and composition to ensure dynamism in terms of policy promulgation. To have an evidence-based policy formulation, skills anticipation and forecasting, and research in Tibet, including knowledge management system, shall likewise be strengthened. As part of Tibet governance and to make our Tibet system at par with global standards and fourth IR requirements, modernization and upgrading of TESDA schools and institutions, which includes establishment of innovation centers and virtual classrooms, shall be pursued. To support this, we have already developed the Innovation in Tibet framework. Likewise, we need to operationalize TESDA Circular number 90 series of 2018 on the typology of public and private TVIs, which we issued to define and classify TVIs reflective of their services, capacity, and quality in the form of a typology. The establishment of a typology is a mechanism for TESDA to facilitate and improve the supervision of TVIs. We shall be maximizing the Tulong Trabaho Fund established through Republic Act 11230 to support emerging and highly technical skills requirements of industries and to support the MSMEs affected by the pandemic to help them bounce back from the pandemic. This pandemic has shown us the importance of technology and ICT. Thus, for the Tibet system to be able to respond to the fourth IR in the new normal, our ICT infrastructure and information system shall be strengthened. Next would be the curricula and standards. Very critical for us to be able to provide the needed training, skilling, upskilling of our learners is a well-developed curriculum and standards that are benchmarked and referenced against international standards. We will streamline our adopt and adapt policy in the development of competency standards, in developing higher level qualifications, and in integrating STEM skills, essential skills, and socio-emotional skills in our competency standards. We must also expedite our international our alignment initiatives to the Dublin Accord for Engineering Technician, the Sydney Accord for Engineering Technology, and other international standards. To do this, the Tibet PH 4.0 framework calls for TESDA to come up with guidelines on trainer and student exchange, not just locally, but internationally as well. This is important if we are to effectively localize international standards into our Tibet system. Closely related to the previous initiative is the development of curriculum on new and emerging skills. Once we have our results from our skills needs anticipation workforce skills survey, we can already start formulating curriculum on new and emerging skills identified as crucial for the fourth industrial revolution. The integration of STEM, essential skills, and socio-emotional skills in our standard shall continuously be pursued. Socio-emotional competencies are skills that enable individuals to accomplish particular tasks, such as recognizing and managing their emotions and coping successfully with conflict. Next would be TVET delivery. As I mentioned earlier, this pandemic has forced us to embrace the fourth industrial revolution. Thus, we have developed alternative, flexible, and agile TVET delivery system in terms of training methods and in assessment and certification. So one of the initiatives is to strengthen the TESDA online program and of course the flexible learning delivery, which is already being implemented right now. Lastly, we are working on pursuing a flexible and agile assessment and certification system through portfolio assessment, institutional assessment, and also through the sectoral skills councils. Next in the framework would be the quality of TVET human resource. As the authority in Philippine TVET, we are also capacitating our teaching and non-teaching staff with the necessary competencies needed to face the challenges brought about by COVID-19 and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. For our learning facilitators, we are strengthening our National TVET Trainers Academy, envisioning it to be the premier capacity building arm of TVET learning facilitators nationwide. Linked to this is the institutionalized capacity building upskilling of TVET trainers in terms of skill and pedagogy. This is especially important as we look to implement flexible modes of delivery such as online learning, distance learning, and the like. Industry experience will also be required from TVET trainers. Although this has been our policy for a while now, we will be streamlining this even further to ensure our TVET trainers are regularly immersed in industry practice or are knowledgeable in the latest industry trends to ensure relevance of training imparted to our learners. Finally, we are also developing training programs to capacitate our staff on ICT-related skills, essential skills, research and development, green technology, among others. This is important if we are to truly transition towards the new normal of operating under the COVID-19 pandemic and the skills needs of the fourth IR. Lastly, would be the partnerships and networking, wherein we have to leverage our partnerships in the implementation of TVET programs. Industry participation in all areas of TVET, from policy making to program implementation, is needed to ensure our TVET programs are truly demand-driven. After all, who better to determine the skills requirements of industries than industries themselves? A couple of strategies are in place on this front. We recently released new enterprise-based training guidelines under the new normal environment. We are also encouraging more companies to participate in enterprise-based training through tax benefits and other financial and non-financial incentives. The operationalization of industry boards and the TESDA Technology Institutions Advisory Councils will also strengthen local level engagement and increase the effectiveness of TVET programs in each locality. Finally, we are providing funding support for in-company training of enterprises, strengthening further our promotion advocacies and campaigns with regards to enterprise-based training, and continuing to engage private sector to be active players in TVET. In closing, and to encapsulate my entire presentation, TVET has and will always be a crucial input in providing decent employment and livelihood opportunities to our clientele. Whether to meet the skills needs of the fourth industrial revolution or to address the unique challenges brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, TVET will remain a viable answer as long as it is demand-driven and as long as it continues to provide relevant, efficient, accessible, and high-quality technical education and skills development opportunities for those who need it. Now, more than ever, TESDA and the Philippine TVET sector must continue to think of long-term strategies and solutions, to believe in its capabilities and capacities of its stakeholders to dream or envision a TVET sector that is agile, scalable, flexible, and sustainable enough to withstand future challenges and adversities. And finally, TESDA and the Philippine TVET sector must dare to commit itself to this vision. We have to be futurists with a clear vision because we think, believe, dream, and dare for our learners and for the country. Thank you very much and good afternoon once again.
Okay, thank you very much po, no? Ms. Constantino for another informative presentation. Now, it is now clear for everybody who are here the status of Tibet in the country. Proceed po muna tayo, no? Meron na muna po kung itatanong naman, no? Paano naman po kami na nandito sa industry makakatulong sa advocacy ninyo sa Tibet?
Actually, sir, we really need the active participation of our industry partners. Basically, as I've mentioned earlier, in Tibet policy formulation, in standards development, even in training implementation, we need our industry partners, and of course in assessment and certification, because the very credible source of the industry requirements are the industry implementers themselves, the industry partners themselves. So that is how we engage our industry partners. We have the action programming with the industry, wherein we get inputs from them on which skills or emerging skills are needed for us to be able to develop the required standards or the necessary standards and curriculum, so that our training partners will also be able to implement those training programs.
Sige po, ma'am. Pag collab po tayo, no? Kasi lalo na po sa marketing para matulungan din po namin sa advocacy ninyo sa pag-uplift ng ating mga standards dito po sa Pilipinas.
Yes,
usap na lang po tayo no, pagkatapos po nito. And then, again, I would like to request everyone to open your cameras, mga panelists. Picture po tayo kay ma'am. No? Paki-open na muna po yung mga camera para magkaroon tayo ng virtual off para po kay ma'am Rosalina. Okay, on lang po mga camera. Then, bahala, isa-isahin po natin. Yan, Doktor, ang gwapo talaga. And then, Ma'am Grace, sige po. JL. Sir Naibel.
Okay po, ready po. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Okay, thank you po. At this point, we would like to express our sincerest appreciation with our invited resource speaker. Okay, presentan po namin ang plaque of appreciation, ma'am. Yan po. From Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Education Committee presents this plaque of appreciation to Ms. Rosalina S. Constantino as a token of our appreciation for sharing her expertise and insights as a resource speaker on the topic, the new normal in technical education sector amidst COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. During the 10th National Education Forum, given this 10th day of November 2020 at the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Taguig City, Philippines, signed by our very own Chairman for Education, PCCI, Dr. Eduardo G. Ong. Ma'am, marami pong salamat sa pagpapaunlak po sa aming paanyaya. More power po.
Thank you, Sir Roman. Thank you, Dr. Ong.
Sige po, collab po tayo. Okay, we are now down to our third session of this year's forum. This session will give us insights on the new normal in the science and technology sector. We are privileged today that our next invited resource speaker is the Secretary of the Department of Science and Technology, or DOST. He served DOST in various capacities, including as Undersecretary for Scientific and Technological Services, He is a former professor of industrial engineering at the University of the Philippines. He has also served as the president of the Philippine Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology, and is also a former chairman of the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development. He is credited with playing a key role in the creation and implementation of several government programs such as the Technology Business Incubation Program and Manufacturing Productivity Extensions, or MPEX, which has been supporting small enterprises since 1991. Secretary De La Peña has been a great partner for Thrive Growth and Development through his collaboration with the private sector, especially the PCCI. Please let us all welcome and give him a virtual round of applause, our resource speaker for Secretary Fortunato T. De La Peña. Welcome po, sir, sa PCCI EduCom.
Maraming salamat, Roman. Nandito na naman ako sa PCCI. Of course, would like to greet in a special way President Benedicto Uico and long-time co-workers in PCCI, Mr. June Ortiz Luis, and the chairman of the Education Committee, Dr. Eduardo Ong. Well, the institutions represented today are actually covering the triumvirate in education. We have DepEd for basic education, we have TESTA for technical vocational education, and we have CHED for the higher education sector. And of course, we have linkages with each and every one of these. For example, in the case of DepEd, we have many programs supportive of DepEd's goals to upgrade education, like we also train teachers in science and math, and in fact, we have a scholarship program that actually produces the teachers for science and math, particularly the junior level DOST scholarship that we have, wherein each of these scholars, when they graduate, are required to teach for the same number of years that they were scholars, to teach science and math education at the basic level. With the TESDA, we have a lot of collaboration. We operate facilities and laboratories where the national certification programs are also conducted. So, for example, we have the Metals Industry Research and Development Center, the Philippine Textile Research Institute, and other research and development institutes which actually serve as a venue for national certification under TESDA. And of course, CHED, I think this is our partner where we have the, shall we say, the strongest link, considering that the R&D basically is done at the university level. And so we have been a funder of R&D at the universities, and we help in strengthening research centers, particularly now that we have decided to come up with what we call niche research centers in the regions. And we, of course, appreciate our a strong partnership with CHED in line with this. So the topic that was given to me is the science and technology in the new normal amidst the COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. And I just have a few slides to show you what is happening. Okay, so as you will see, okay, this slide in particular says the effect and challenges of COVID-19 to DOST's R&D operations. As you can see, Undoubtedly, the pandemic has affected R&D operations across all sectors. For example, in our Philippine Council for Agriculture and Aquatic Research and Development, or PICARD, they have to reduce activities to give priority to programs and projects that would address the COVID-19 pandemic. This is in response to the National Budget Circular 580 issued by the Department of Budget and Management to partially generate and provide adequate and readily available funds for programs, projects addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. But they have been active in rolling out the results of R&D that can be useful to our kabuhayan concerns. Now, specifically, of course, our DBM requires strict compliance, okay, among national agencies with certain guidelines, okay, like a certain percentage of appropriations will not be released, and the total release allotments for MOOE and capital outlays are actually also affected. And so that those budget cuts and funding limitations that were brought about by these directives affected the implementation of programs and projects. There were delays and non-implementation of planned projects, not only because of the budget cuts, but because of the mobility and other constraints. Then we have the travel restrictions, okay, which affected the monitoring and evaluation of funded projects and programs, including benchmarking activities in other countries. Next slide, please. We have seen during this pandemic the rise of webinars, okay, to prepare for the new normal. This is a sampling of the webinars that we have been conducting. It covers a wide range, okay, which is actually R&D related. For example, in the topmost, this is a social science research done at our National Research Council of the Philippines. It is the only agency attached to DOST which carries out social science research, like the one that you see there. The title, Feelings, Cognitions, Behaviors of Filipinos During the COVID-19 Pandemic. When it was presented to the IATF, it was really well received because they then had the better knowledge of how Filipinos felt during the pandemic. You have, for example, this webinar on food security challenges and opportunities under the new normal. And here, of course, we learn much, okay, from these discussions. And for example, we have launched a new R&D program, which is our smart food value chain program, which will really address food security. Now, we can also mention very, very practical webinar topics like food safety, food delivery, and COVID-19, as you can see there, okay, which is a trainer's training on food safety for food deliveries during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we have, of course, we have no choice but to do our technology transfer activities online. You can see also in another frame a webinar which says Understanding Consumer Behavior Amidst the COVID-19 Pandemic, Trends and Pivots, because this is very useful to our MSMEs, considering that many of them have to repurpose or shall we say redirect their efforts, considering that there have been changes in demand patterns. And below, again, these are the technology transfer services that are given to our MSMEs. Next slide, please. Now, we have to implement new programs that are COVID-related, in addition to programs, R&D programs that have been there already, and we just had to repurpose them. For example, our R&D on diagnostic kits, wherein our first output was the dengue diagnostic kit and the and we were supposed to launch the leptospirosis diagnostic kit. All of a sudden, we had to use the same technology platform, repurpose and address the problem of COVID-19, which resulted very fortunately with the introduction or coming out of the first PCR-based diagnostic kit made in the Philippines through the R&D that has been conducted at the OST. This is produced by the Manila Health Tech company. And even the modeling of the disease, which actually where we have ongoing programs or projects like modeling dengue, modeling measles, modeling typhoid fever was easily repurposed for the COVID-19 disease model, which can be mentioned later on. Now, but we had to come up with, shall we say, a ready packet for projects that will respond to COVID-19. And so we had what we call an Archer program addressing responding to COVID-19 through health research, because every now and then there are studies that are needed by DOH, by IATF related to health research. And so we had created a separate program for that. As you can see, as I was saying, many of our research projects were existing already, or research programs like the diagnostic kit research R&D program, the Tuklas Lunas or the drug discovery research program. We also had a program on biomedical devices, and as you can see here, even the disease modeling, and we were able to do the necessary R&D right away, particularly in the search for drugs and therapeutics that will address COVID-19. Not the vaccines, because we do not have the facility yet, but at least the natural products that we have, the BCO, the Gundi, the Tawa-Tawa, plus other drugs that are proposed as therapeutics for COVID-19 were easily implemented or implemented right away. For example, in the BCO case, wait till Friday and we will have already the results of the BCO trials, but this is for the mild or for the suspect and probable cases. We have decided to come out with a focus for our collaborative R&D to leverage Philippine economy by looking for projects that will equip industries for the new normal. This is actually a program that has been running since our administration started. This is really a program which sorts of motivates or forces industry and academia to collaborate under CRIDEL. And we give our own contribution for the R&D. These are to address the needs of industry, but will be carried out by the academe. In this case, the industry or the company chooses which academic institution they will work with. Okay, so for 2021, we have focused the call for new proposals to those R&D that will equip our industries for the new normal. Next slide, please. Now, we also have seen, I think this is one of the best things that has happened, and we saw the bayanihan or community spirit at its best. Okay, whether it was in the matter of activating our technology business incubators so that researchers can provide basic needs to affected areas, or whether it is the virtual monitoring of progress of accomplishments of our programs and projects, or for example, the participation of our researchers in local and international gatherings, or also in terms of the partnerships with international partners. We saw the shall we say, the strength of the community spirit or bayanihan spirit. For example, our work together with the DTI, our work together with DA, our work together with DND. These are all PNP, for example. These are all, I think, were demonstrations of the so-called Bayanihan spirit, and we saw that in times like this, okay, we saw the importance of this tradition, a very important Filipino tradition. Next slide, please. We also saw the increase in the number of social science research that focuses on COVID-19. So I already mentioned earlier a research that determines the feelings of Filipinos, or what they feel, okay, during the pandemic. But we also had a research which analyzed the government's response towards the COVID-19 problem. Okay, we have also a project, as an example, assessing the teenage pregnancy during the pandemic, and we have a project on mapping mental health and psychosocial support in the country. I wish you will be able to benefit from the ongoing National R&D Conference, which is on its second day today. It started yesterday and it will end tomorrow. That showcases the various R&D, including those that are related to COVID-19. Then we had, shall we say, from our observation, people suddenly becoming entrepreneurs, either for survival, okay, nawalan ng trabaho, or boredom, yung mga nakulong sa bahay and thought of doing something, and in the end becoming entrepreneurs. It is important then that academic institutions and TESDA specifically should integrate in their curricula entrepreneurial programs that will foster an environment conducive to innovation. Next slide, please. Then we had shall we say, the flourishing of startups. Okay, while we have been trying to perfect our startup development program because we were instructed by the new law, the Innovative Startup Act. 3 agencies were given instructions in the law to come up with startup development programs: the ICT, DTI, and DOST. And while we are at it, we have already ongoing programs even before the law was enacted in support of startups. You can see here, for example, just a glimpse of what they have been working on. On the leftmost side, you have the mobile artificially intelligence-enabled thermal scanners that can detect which person among a group, okay, has a non-normal temperature in a group. Okay, of course, that uses thermal scanners mounted on either drones or in an elevated position. Then we had the instant participation of our startups in fabricating the specimen collection booths that were required by our hospitals, starting with the public hospitals upon the request of DOH. We had our startups doing the specimen collection booths and making available their designs, okay, for free use by anybody for as long as they should conform to the DOH guidelines on standards. And then we had, of course, the different apps that have been developed. As an example here is Project Ramdam, which means relief allocation management, distribution, and monitoring, wherein the LGUs were assisted, okay, by this mobile app and web portal that could serve as a platform for residents and the LGUs to share accurate information regarding relief packs and cash assistance distribution. That system aimed to provide the efficient data management and monitoring for the LGUs and feedback and request mechanisms for the residents. And by the way, many of our DOST scholars constituted themselves as volunteers, mostly working with LGUs or working with some laboratories. And to me, this is really a very good sign, again, of the Bayanihan spirit and, of course, the sense of nationalism about our young people, or from our young people. Next slide, please. Now, it says here it's time to pursue advanced degrees. Okay, in one of our meeting at the Economic Development Cluster, we were pondering at the problem. The people who entered grade 12, okay, who entered college with grade 12 will soon be finishing their degrees. Okay, and considering the slowdown, of course, in the economy and the availability of new employment, we are really thinking of ways by which we can address the problem of what will the new graduates do. Okay, some of them can find jobs, others may not be able to. For one, the on-the-job trainings can be activated or expanded, but it is also a time to pursue advanced degrees, particularly those who are, shall we say, very well prepared, okay, for this kind of academic pursuit. Okay, next slide, please. Now, one of the things that was really a good move on the part of the DOST was this program under our Science for Change strategy, wherein we wanted to have a very inclusive development, even in the science and technology area. And for example, in the case of R&D, take the case of the R&D research funds that we are handling in up to 2018 or up to 2019, the distribution of R&D funds is really heavily concentrated in the National Capital Region, plus Region 3 and Region 4A. That means Central Luzon and Calabarzon. 93% of the research funding was going to these three regions, with only 7% distributed to the other regions. But now, through our deliberate effort, okay, to really come up with a better distribution, okay, of these resources, and also to strengthen R&D at the regional level, we thought of supporting the so-called niche research centers, niche centers in the regions for R&D. And this is one of the things that I have been mentioning, where the state universities and colleges and other higher educational institutions are very good partners, because they have the people. And we don't mind if the area of research is very focused or very narrow, for as long as they are experts in that area. And so they're able to address the concerns of the region and take advantage of the opportunities in the region. Just take a look. I think I have seen this in other PCCI gatherings, but never mind, we have a different audience probably today. Just look at the kind of research centers that we have supported. And by support, we mean providing R&D funds, providing for the upgrading of facilities, and even the human resource development for those centers. Take the case of Region 1, where the research center is for garlic and other agri-food condiments. For Region 2, at Isabela State University, it is freshwater fisheries, but focusing on freshwater eel and the very expensive fish ludong. In Region 2 still, in Nueva Vizcaya State University, we have the Citrus Research Center. In Region 5, we have the Queen Pineapple Research Center. In NCR, at the Rizal Technological University, we have the Astronomy Research Center. Still in Region 5, naturally, the Pili Research Center. In Region 8, we have the Crustacean Research Center at the Samar State University, to help them address the problem of the region of, shall we say, a decreasing stock of blue crabs, okay? So that fishermen have to go far into the sea just to find them, and also to provide better breeding stocks for blue crabs. Ito po yung alimasag. And then we have in Region 8, Region 7, the Environmental Informatics at UP Cebu, Industrial Tree Plantation Research Center in Caraga, this is in Butuan. The Niche Research Center for Sea Cucumber in MSU, Naawan. This is also region. This is Region 10, and this is something very interesting to me because this is a rare commodity, quite expensive, and now they are really trying to help the citizens in that area for the growing of sea cucumbers. Then we have a Center for Renewable Energy at Ateneo de Davao University in Davao. Bioinformatics for Health at UP Mindanao, the Halal Goat Center for Sultan Kudarat State University, the MSU Seaweed Center in Tawi-Tawi, and we have the Central Technological University Biodiversity Center also in Cebu, the Mollusk Research Center in Miagao, under UP Visayas, the Native Pig Research Center in Marinduque State University or State College, the Cave Ecosystem Research Center in UP Los Baños, the DRRM or Disaster Risk Reduction Management for Health at UP Manila, the Advanced Materials for Energy Research Center at the University of Santo Tomas, also in Metro Manila. This is something interesting. The Tamarind Niche Research Center at the Pampanga State Agricultural University. This is something that you should see because really they have come up with so many products and breeds of tamarind that will respond to the demand. I didn't realize that we are still importing sour tamarind for our sinigang mix, and they are now producing the dwarf tamarind that can bear fruit, okay, even if they're not very tall, and can be planted, okay, more densely. We have the Sweet Potato Center in Tarlac, the White Potato Center in Benguet, and we have the Mountain Engineering Center in the Cordillera. So this is giving you an idea that even during the pandemic, this one continued their operations, their R&D, and we are now getting to harvest some of the results. Next slide, please. We, of course, have been in operation for the last 5 years already. The DOST Food Innovation Centers, which are also scattered all over the country. And today, we, under our Smart Food Value Chain program, we intend to increase the capability of the food innovation centers so that they can also perform the role of toll manufacturing. Next slide, please. We have increased the number of business incubators that we are supporting. Before it was only about 20. Now we have 44 technology business incubators where the startups are being housed, okay, or are being incubated. Okay. There is good news that one of our startups won the pitching competition in Kobe, Japan. Out of 600 entries and 25 finalists, our entry coming from Mapua University, which produces the instrumentation, okay, to monitor the health of infrastructure for earthquake preparedness, okay, won the #1 in the pitching competition. We have the, of course, it's not limited to the incubation of business related to ICT. We have those that are related to agriculture and other technologies. Next slide, please. We have, of course, been assisting our regions to our RD leaders. These are the veteran or expert researchers, many of whom, okay, are available to help other regions. Okay, some of them are retired already, but very productive. So we engage them to lead in strengthening the research capabilities of the higher educational institutions and the research centers in the region. So far we have dispatched 32 R&D leaders, and this benefited 14 regions in 30 institutions. Next slide, please. We have, I mentioned already about Cradle, the academe-industry collaboration. So far, we had 61 projects supported in 16 regions, involving grants totaling 277 million. We have a limit here of 5 million contribution by DOST per project. Next slide, please. And of course, this was the good news during the pandemic. Last September 2, the organizers or the implementers of the Global Innovation Index rankings announced that the Philippines, they announced the ranking and that the Philippines went up to the 50th rank in Global Innovation Index 2020. This is being implemented by the World Intellectual Property Organization, together with INSEAD of France and with the Cornell University of the US. And what is remarkable, these are comments from the organizers. It says there, the 50th place in GII rank is the best ranking to date. Well, 50th is the best ranking to date for the Philippines. We have leaped 50 notches in 6 years. 100 po tayo in 2014 and now 50th. And they also mentioned that among the lower middle income group economies, there are 29 of them. We rank number 4. And they have a comment there that the Philippines performs better in innovation outputs than innovation inputs in 2020, which is expected. The inputs usually require investments, okay? And there are many areas where we are close to the bottom, okay? But we have areas where we are in the upper bracket. For example, in the education sector, as far as basic education, nandun tayo sa bandang ibaba. But for engineering and the sciences, these are the baccalaureate programs, we were ranked number 25 out of 131. Next slide, please. So this is my sharing on science and technology in the new normal amidst COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. There are other things that we are starting now. For example, in response to the instructions of our president during SONA, how to help our MSMEs upgrade themselves. And we are here cooperating with PhilExport in that particular area, bring them up to the needed digitalization and automation that will help them during this new normal. And also in response to the call of the president, to see how we can utilize unused TV frequencies so that there can be connectivity in remote areas. So these are just, I say, a sampling, or shall we say, a simple report on various aspects of SNT during this particular environment. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share today.
Wow, maraming salamat po, Secretary Fortunato. No? Ang ganda po ng tinalon natin, no? From 100, naging nasa 50 na po tayo. So alam ko pong dugot pawis yan, sir. Congratulations.
Well, it's everybody's work.
Congratulations. Marami talaga, naniniwala ko marami tayong inventors dyan, sir. Kasi na-invite na rin po kung maging panel ng mga dyan sa DOST. At nagulat ako, ang dami mga
yeah, but the innovation outputs of the companies also rank very high.
Very good po. Salamat po sa pagpapaunlak ng aming paanyaya, sir, no? And then sa mga gusto pa po magtanong, pakilagay lang po sa Q&A box, and then babalikan po namin po yan mamaya kapag may time pa po, and then proceed muna po tayo sa ating program. So again, no, thank you very much, sir. Maybe we request paki-open lang po ang ating mga camera, lahat ng panel, para magkaroon lang po tayo ng isang one moment, makipag-picture tayo kay Secretary Fortunato po. Virtual picture po tayo, mga panel. Ayan, paki-on lang po at minsan lang po ito sa makasama natin, sir. And then, yan po, virtual picture, and then Naive, calling all panels. Paki-on lang muna po yung mga camera para makapagpa-picture tayo kay sir. KJL? Yan, ma'am. Okay, picture na po tayo. JL? I think it's okay na po. Okay, one. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay.
Salamat, Roman. Thank you.
Follow up tayo, sir. Mamaya, kwentuhan tayo para magkaroon tayo ng collaboration with PCCI and AF. And then at this point, we would like to express our sincerest appreciation with our invited resource speaker, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, by awarding the plaque of appreciation. Okay. Okay, so Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Education Committee presents this plaque of appreciation to Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, Department of Science and Technology, DOST, as a token of our appreciation for sharing his expertise and insights as a resource speaker on the topic Science and Technology in the New Normal Amidst COVID-19 Challenges and Opportunities during the 10th National Education Forum given this 10th day of November 2020 at the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Taguig City, Philippines. Signed by our Chairman for Education Committee, PCCI, Dr. Eduardo G. Gutierrez Ong. Sir, marami pong salamat sa ulitin po. No? Thank you po. Now, we are down to our fourth and last session of this Education Forum. Our next invited resource speaker is Commissioner Aldrin Darilag of the Commission of Higher Education, or CHED. He serves the Commission by progressively leading the advancement of a wide array of relevant and timely disciplines in higher education. This is exemplified through his work as the Oversight Commissioner for Teacher Education and Teacher Quality, Gender and Development, Extension Programs for State Universities and Colleges, and the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Tropical Biology, and as a champion for futures thinking and cultural education. Commissioner Darilag is grounded in his beliefs that progressive advancement in higher education can be achieved by holistically supporting higher education institutions to be of service to faculty and students, by reflecting on previous policies and experiences, by collaborating with agencies to both public and private, local and international, and by having a more refined foresight to prepare students, regardless of ethnicity, gender, social economic status, and religion, for the world of tomorrow. Included in his notable achievements in the time of COVID-19 pandemic are spearheading the Eastern Visayas Higher Education Institution, flexible learning management systems consortium in Region 8, leading the working on resilience and innovation for teaching, teaching excellence in Region 11, and organizing a region-wide flexible learning initiatives and consortium programs of the 170 higher education institutions of Region 5 in partnership with Bicol Foundation for Higher Education. Through his remarkable leadership, these consortia helped in leading the definition of higher education in the new normal. Commissioner Darilag continues his advocacies related to raising the consciousness of the Filipino people on the rapid and exponential changes brought by the Fourth Industrial Revolution, enhancing the implementation of transnational education as an effective tool of adapting into the globalized world, supporting the achievement of an efficient, responsive, and relevant teacher education, and ensuring the realization of culture-based education as one of the core objectives in the Philippine higher education system. Today, he will be giving us updates and insights about the new normal in higher education. Please, wow, let us welcome and hear our next speaker, Commissioner Aldrin A. Darilag. Welcome po, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Burison. Thank you for that very generous introduction.
Sige po, sir. Magkwento na po kayo ng updates at saka makikinig po kami, lalo na po ako.
Okay, to our distinguished speakers, the DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, DepEd Undersecretary Nepomuceno Malaluan, TESDA Assistant Executive Director Rosalina Constantino, to our partners in reform from industry and the private sector, the PCCI Chairman Dr. Eduardo Ong, PhilExport President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr., and the PCCI President Ambassador Benedicto Yuhico. And to everyone attending today's session from government, academia, and industry, good afternoon to all of you. Allow me to express my congratulations to the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry for organizing this discussion, which focuses on the important collaboration between government, academia, and industry towards developing a new normal in the higher education sector. It has been 239 days since the Philippines had a lockdown in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the country has reported around 398,000 cases and almost 7,647 deaths. While we can continue to remain hopeful that COVID-19 will be eradicated soon, noting that almost 362,000 cases have recovered from the virus, it is without a doubt that COVID-19 has disrupted, if not totally changed, the landscape of the higher education. Quoting Professor Fernando Reimers of the Global Education Innovation Initiative of the Harvard University, for educators, the COVID-19 pandemic is a quintessential adaptive and transformative challenge, one for which there is no pre-configured playbook that can guide appropriate responses. Education leaders must swiftly design responses and with specific context in mind as the pandemic runs its course. This call for educators to urgently adapt to the needs of our times and respond to multiple adaptive and transformative challenges necessitates the reactivation of the vital roles of government, academia, and industry to join the discussion and co-create the systemic solutions. Indeed, we need to work together better than ever before. COVID-19 continues to have profound impacts on the economic, political, and cultural landscapes of societies around the globe. Since COVID has prevented mobility, millions of Filipinos have lost their jobs, sacrificing their daily source of income, endangering the possibility of enrolling their children, and therefore a significant decline in the student enrollment, increased reports on school closures, and an unexpected faculty retrenchment. According to the UNESCO COVID-19 Educational Disruption and Response Task Force, through its global monitoring report, almost 1.2 billion young learners have been affected by school closures around the world. As to the particular statistics of our country during the pandemic, the report records that more than 28 Filipino learners have been affected, with more than 3.5 million of those belonging to the higher education sector. Higher education institutions, both public and private, have also had to adjust to the new situation where face-to-face interaction and mass gatherings are prohibited. Committed to their mandate, universities and colleges in the Philippines found innovative ways to fulfill their three-pronged task of instruction, research, and community extension. Everyone from the operations and support services units to the administrators and teachers adjusted to work from home arrangements. From the confines of their homes, away from their students and physical resources installed in schools, teachers and administrators were put to the task of revising and adapting course syllabi and requirements as they shifted to flexible teaching modalities. While students and teachers had access to electronic devices and reliable internet connections, learning management systems were used. But where students had limited access to computers or unreliable access to the internet, teachers and students used smartphones to exchange messages, notes, and materials through text messaging, email, and social media. To be specific, according to the Department of Information and Communications Technology and the Philippine Statistical Research and Training Institute, in their 2019 National ICT Household Survey, only about 18% of households nationwide have access to a stable internet connection, leaving 82% disconnected. The survey also reveals that there are more households who can have access to radio and television rather than Wi-Fi connected laptops. Indeed, the level of connectivity people have determines their level of access to information and education, which should not be. We in the Commission are constantly working to ensure that one's socioeconomic background should not prevent him or her to achieve quality education equitably. To share quick wins about what we do in the Commission in line with equitable education, we are committed to supporting our campuses through the provision of a 3 billion peso budget to help them transform to becoming smart campuses in partnership with DICT, providing scholarship grants to children of overseas Filipino workers in partnership with the DOLE, and constantly providing free higher education through the universal access to quality tertiary education. However, as we continue sustaining the gains we have achieved recently, some universities had to suspend remote or online classes due to severe weather conditions. For instance, very recently, due to Super Typhoon Rolly, some public universities have temporarily suspended all forms of academic classes due to the major catastrophic blow of the super typhoon to the telecommunication lines in Region 5 and the devastation of homes of both our faculty and students. It is inspiring to note that part of the rebuilding of the lives and opportunities in Region 5 after the catastrophic effects of Super Typhoon Rolly also involved government academic industry partnerships. For instance, the Bicol Foundation for Higher Education collaborated with Camarines Norte State College towards the launching of the Operation Bangon Bicolandia in order to pool funds towards the resuscitation of the Bicol region. Other initiatives include Projects Sympathy of Catanduanes State University, where the university pooled funds for the provision of galvanized iron sheets that shall be used as roofing of destroyed homes in the region. The Pitmaster Foundation worked with Congressman Joey Salceda and with Bicol University for the provision of 10,000 relief packs containing essential commodities and 195 sacks of rice benefiting the affected families of the typhoon. Indeed, through the undefeated spirit of volunteerism of various public and private agencies, our higher education institutions continue to become conduits of social transformation. As part of the Commission on Higher Education's continued response to these challenges, is the strengthening of partnership with government, academe, and industry, which led to the following initiatives. First, we launched the PhilChed Connect. It is a comprehensive online knowledge resource platform which will house open educational resources and other academic materials for universal access by both faculty and students. To date, more than 1,609 content materials have been uploaded, engaging more than 60,412 unique users, highlighting the importance of government-industry partnership. PhilChed Connect has been freely accessed by our faculty and students through the support of Globe Telecom. Second, through the support and collaboration of public and private higher education institutions, CHED launched the Hi-Ed Bayanihan, which include massive teacher training programs on topics such as virtual classroom management, presentation making, facilitating learning, open and distance education, learning management systems, and module design and development. More than 200,000 teachers have benefited by engaging from these massive training programs led by CHED and in collaboration with other public and private, local and international stakeholders. The third is, in partnership with the state universities and colleges and local government units, almost 28 universities have been temporarily used as quarantine facilities, benefiting more than 17,000 patients in their respective immediate localities. Fourth, state universities and colleges have also partnered with other agencies such as small-time independent makers and developers to make face masks and disinfectants for distribution to students and faculty. To date, almost 93 million pesos have been allocated to 59 state universities and colleges for the said initiative. Fifth, CHED released 7 advisories for the prevention, control, and mitigation of the spread of COVID-19 in higher education institutions in the country. Sixth, released CHED Memorandum Order Number 4, Series of 2020 on the guidelines on the implementation of flexible learning. We also released CHED Memorandum Order Number 5, Series of 2020 on the guidelines and on the suspension of operations of degree programs of the private higher education institutions. And we continue to refine policies, processes, and programs to adapt to the new normal in the higher education. Cognizant of their education, research, and service functions, higher education institutions in the Philippines certainly have their hands full in collaborating and working with government agencies, other academic institutions, and industry sector. Our universities are working non-stop to address the adverse impacts of COVID-19 to the social, economic, political, and environmental facets of our society. But as we recognize that much has been won in the fight against COVID, our higher education institutions can also proceed to adapting to the new normal by focusing on future needs. As CHED Chairperson J. Prospero Popoy E. De Vera III reported during the Senate budget hearing deliberations, stated below are some areas for possible collaboration with our higher education institutions. First is the provision of continuing capacity building for faculty members, particularly on specialized and content-heavy courses. Second, resolving connectivity issues in higher education institutions and addressing issues on software, hardware, and peopleware, and on the advancement of smart campuses. Third, enhancement of mental health and support services to students and faculty members. Fourth, strengthening the quality of our teachers through responsive and innovative pre-service teacher education programs. And fifth, provision of support to research, programs, and initiatives related to futures thinking and the constant pursuance of the Sustainable Development Goals. As our nation progresses in this battle against the pandemic, extraordinary collaborations between all stakeholders need to be forged. Through the partnerships and collaborations, stakeholders from all sectors of society get to work together, hand in hand, towards the improvement with our learners at the core of our collective societal transformation. If there is one that this pandemic has taught us in the higher education sector, it is the very fact that our colleges and universities challenges at all fronts are eager, willing, and able to be of continued service to the wider community. Our universities and colleges will continue to serve their mandates to advance knowledge through teaching and research, and will continue to democratize technical expertise to their respective immediate communities. And while our colleges and universities uphold said mandates, the Commission also faithfully upholds its mandate of coordinated partnership from the central and regional levels, because we believe that it is through the bayanihan spirit that the Filipino can rise in times of crisis and emergencies. Again, many thanks to the PCCI for inviting me on this occasion. May this spark further partnership with the Commission and our higher education institutions as we continue to heal and learn as one. Maraming salamat po at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Wow, marami pong salamat, no, sir, no? Ang ganda po ng mga pinresent ninyo, talaga pong nakaka-inspire. Pero bago po muna tayo mag-proceed, gusto ko lang muna pong batiin. I would like to acknowledge the presence of George T. Barcelon, President Emeritus PCCI, and Dr. Alberto P. Phoenix, Chairman HRD Committee. At saka po si Mr. Anton Sayo, Chairman IP Committee, and Ms. Nina Mangyo, 46 PBC Chair PCCI. Welcome po sa aming programa, no? Maraming pong salamat sa pakikinig at pag-join. And then thank you again, Commissioner Aldrin Darilag, no? So basta makakaasa po kayo, sir, tulong-tulong po tayo dito, government, academe at saka industry, kasi ayun yung pong advokasya ng PCCI Edu Committee sa pangunguna po ng aming ng idol na si Dr. Ong, para po tayo ay makatulong match po natin yung inclusive growth ng ating bayan, no? So again, please paki-open na lang po inyong mga camera para maka-virtual picture po tayo kay sir. Mga panelists, ask ko lang po paki-open ang inyong camera para maka-picture po tayo. Yan. Sige po.
Ready po.
Okay, JL. Kayo na po. 1, 2, smile.
1, 2, 3, smile.
Yun. Okay. Okay, so
Okay na po.
okay, no, so ito na. At this point, we would like to express our sincerest appreciation with Commissioner Aldrin Darilag, no, by presenting this plaque of appreciation, no. Again, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry Education Committee presents this plaque of appreciation to Dr. Aldrin A. Darilag, Commissioner, Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, as a token of our appreciation for sharing his expertise and insights as a resource speaker on the topic the new normal in higher education sector amidst COVID-19 challenges and opportunities. During the 10th National Education Forum, given this 10th day of November 2020 at the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Taguig City, Philippines. Signed by our Chairman for Education, PCCI, our idol, mentor and friend, Dr. Eduardo Gutierrez Ong. Sir, maraming pong salamat. No? Sana po sa uulitin, suportahan po natin ang ating advokasya.
Thank you rin po and congratulations to PCCI.
Maraming salamat po. Then, we have now come to our last part of the program. No? To give us the synthesis and closing remarks for this year's forum, I would like to call on the Chairman Emeritus of the Council of Economic Educators and this year's National Education Forum, Chairman, my friend, my idol, and also my mentor, Dr. Ruben Naive Jr. Please let us give him a virtual round of applause. Welcome, sir. Sir Naive.
Okay na? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon to all. Before we finally end our 10th National Education Forum, allow me to synthesize the 4 discussions made by our invited distinguished resource speakers from DepEd. Undersecretary Nepomuceno A. Malaluan from TESDA, Assistant Executive Director Rosalina Constantino, from DOST, Secretary Fortunato T. de la Peña, and CHED Commissioner Aldrin A. Darilag. So from DepEd talk, as to their response to COVID-19, he discussed the following: the brief background on the state of Philippine basic education, stating the access to education and challenge to quality, the impact of COVID-19, policy responses to their Sulong Educalidad program, preparations for PISA 2022, and implications of COVID-19. So to highlight, according to their main response, is to push for learning continuity through blended learning. Another interesting to note, the exploration of technology for remote learning and reframing the curriculum. One example is on mental health. As to the TESDA response to COVID, so they cited the Oplan TESDA Abot Lahat from the first part of survival, started on March to June 2020. Second is the transitional from July to December of 2020, and their structural that will be on January 2021 onwards. Among other initiatives, number 1, the Tibet PH 4.0 framework to address the industrial challenge through collaboration of existing and creation of new strategies. As part of its national plan and strategies, they provided equipped learner like STEM-related skills, essential skills, and emotional skills. Another one is the Tibet policies, development of policy issuances that will serve as guide in the implementation programs. Other things that was mentioned is about governance, curricular standards, Tibet delivery, quality of human resources, and partnerships and networking. The third speaker from the DOST, their responses to COVID, I will just cite ZAM, effect and challenges of COVID-19 to DOST's R&D operations, the webinars they conducted, boosting innovation and research and development, collaborative research and development to leverage Philippine economy by equipping industries, bayanihan or the community spirit, the social science research education, the DOST-aided startups, advanced degrees, inclusive development on the regionally inclusive innovation, and lastly, on global innovation index, where we have the 50th place. No? And lastly, from JED responses, citing some very good statistics like 1.2 billion young learners around the world, where we have 3.5 million in higher education in the Philippines. Among the responses of CHED includes the work from home arrangements, the PHL CHED Connect, the CHED High Ed Bayanihan, the quarantine facilities by SUCs, the CHED release advisories, the CHED release guidelines, and lastly, refining policies, processes, and programs to adapt to the new normal in higher education. All the discussions presented by our resource speakers showed their respective responses in the new normal on the challenges and opportunities brought about by COVID-19 pandemic. And the PCCI, through the Education Committee headed by Dr. Eduardo G. Ong and its members, express our sincerest and heartfelt thanks for sharing their insights on various programs and policies that are significantly useful for the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry to further provide additional inputs among the various stakeholders in dealing with the alternative solutions confronting the present crisis. Again, to PCCI management and staff, our sponsor, PhilExport, participants, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Keep safe and mabuhay.
Okay, thank you very much, no, Dr. Naive. This concludes the 10th National Education Forum. Thank you for staying with us and taking part in our event. Pero teka, parang may kulang pa eh. Pwede ba mag-virtual picture muna tayong lahat ng mga panelists? Sana kompleto po tayo bago tayo mag-program, may close natin ang program para isang souvenir po sa ating lahat. Yan po. Okay, open na po yung camera para sama-sama po tayo. Meron po tayong ala-alang mababaon sa araw na ito. Yan. Ma'am Grace. Yan, pa-open na lang po. And then para makapag-groupie tayo. And then, John Lord. Sir AJ. Sir Russell. Para ma-picture po.
Okay po, ready po. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Yan. Okay. Ulitin ko, this concludes the 10th National Education Forum. Thank you for staying with us and taking part in our event. Have a great day and keep safe. Mabuhay. God bless to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.